So question 2, what I want to do now is to get you participating a little bit. It's obviously not so easy with a virtual seminar. If we were having a live seminar with, as we've done in the past, 100 people in the room, we can go around the room and explore some of these numbers. But I'd like you to participate because I'd like you to think the way you would as a consumer. And then we'll explore some of the issues that come out. So I'd like you to scribble on a piece of paper or do it on your phone, whichever you prefer. What do you think is the price of a single egg? That's one of a dozen eggs bought yesterday at a supermarket, free range, medium-sized eggs. So what's the price of one egg? I'd like you to think about what is the price of a litre of petrol. That's a litre of petrol bought in a motorway service station yesterday. And I'd like you to think about the price of a watch. In fact, this watch, which deliberately I'm not going to show you too much detail of, but what would you think is the price of that watch? And then what do you think is the price of a dozen red roses specifically delivered on Valentine's Day? So just write down 4 prices that you think are a reasonable guess of what you think the prices are for those items. And then we're going to explore in a moment what the impact of some of the pricing techniques that we're talking about have on those numbers. Okay, I'm assuming you've written down 4 numbers. So let's just explore some of the elements to pricing decisions that are relevant to those 4 products. So firstly, insignificance. The egg, as part of a whole shop, you might spend £200 or more potentially on a big shop, and you might have a dozen or so eggs in there. The price of those eggs in comparison to some of the other items, the jar of coffee or some of the other things you're buying, it's a relatively small price issue in a much bigger spend. And in lots of businesses, we find that there is a significant spend. So you buy a piece of machinery, and when you buy that machinery, there are spares, there are service agreements, there are warranty payments, etc., which by comparison to the main spend are insignificant. And the buying decision of the customer is completely different on the big spend than is on those small bits around the edges. So when you're thinking, for example, we should be making a 40% margin, we might make a 60 or 70% margin on those small things because it doesn't matter. In the eye of the consumer, a penny more on the price of an egg, not really relevant at all. In the eye of the producer, a penny on every egg is a huge amount of money. So think about the things that you do in terms of whether there are big spend decisions and small ancillary decisions, and they should be priced in quite different ways. Convenience, of course, is a big issue. Price of fuel is often considered a very price-sensitive product. We moan about it a lot. It gets in the news sometimes when it triggers certain prices. When oil prices fluctuate, we all go, oh, crikey, the price of fuel is going to go up. But in reality, the vast majority of people do not buy fuel based on the price. They buy it based on convenience. That is when the red light comes on, which for me is usually just after I've gone past the last motorway exit. But when the light comes on, I'll fill up at the next service station, or when I do my shopping, I'll fill up at the superstore where I get my food and weekly shop. So whilst we think it's a price sensitive issue, it's really based on convenience. And there will be some people listening today where the value you bring to the customer is convenient. You have it on the shelf when no one else does. Let's talk about watch, for example. A big chunk of the price of a watch is not the component cost of the watch itself. My watch is a rather nice one. The components may be slightly more expensive than they would be for a cheaper one, but the functionality is the same. They tell the time. The components may be, £10, £20, £100 out of the price of it. The real improvement in value is in the brand, because Breitling, it happens to be this watch, Breitling spent a ton of money giving away watches for free, paying superstars to wear them. That's where the value comes. And the value for the customer is in the association, the status, the brand value, nothing to do with the component prices. So when we're talking to our customers, we should be thinking about the intangible value of the products or service we bring, not just the component elements. Flowers is a classic one. We have lots of clients where there is a seasonality or availability, maybe seasonally available. It may just be people are struggling to get hold of it. We accept, all of us, that when Valentine's Day comes along, the price of roses goes up. That's inevitable. Nobody goes into a florist and rants and raves about the fact that you've put your prices up by double. That's outrageous. We just accept, we buy or we don't buy because we know Mother's Day, Christmas, Valentine's Day, there are periods where prices are higher and we choose to pay those prices or we choose not to pay those prices. It's not as emotional price fluctuation as we think it is. Price points, really interesting point. We price fuel in litres. Everywhere you see, it will be up on the board, priced in litres. Very, very few people buy 20 litres or 30 litres. We tend to go in and put £50 or £100. If your tank will take that much, but we put in round sum amounts based on the cash in our wallet or just putting a chunk of money in there, or we just fill it up as I tend to do. We don't buy it, we don't pay for it in the units which it is promoted as. So we lose contact with X pence per litre versus we're putting £100 of fuel in our tank. Price presentation, this is an interesting one. We don't sell eggs in 10s or 20s, etc. We sell them in 6s, 12s, 18. And it's really interesting when I've run this before with various seminars, when I say to somebody the price of 10 items is £2.68, almost instinctively, without really wanting to, they go, that's 26.8 pence each, because it's easy to calculate that number. If I said, oh, the price of 13 is £3.12, they tend to go, oh, £3.12, oh, that'll do. They don't do the calculation because it's too difficult. And if we make price comparisons really easy, customers will make price comparisons. And sometimes they're doing it subconsciously. It's just an automatic response. That's the price for 10. How much is one? So if we package it in different quantities, if we present it in different ways, if we add elements in that make it not directly comparable with somebody else's product or price, then it makes it much harder for them to make that comparison and price becomes less important in that equation. Let's talk about perception. There is an issue of perception of value. So you may have assumed that my watch is expensive because I'm an accountant, a business consultant. There is a presumption that things are expensive, that they must be good. And therefore you will find sometimes customers go, well, that's a bit cheap, can't be very good. Or that's expensive, it must be good. So we really have to understand our price points in terms of what perception is that creating of our customers. We may want to be a bit cheaper and attract customers, but are we attracting the right ones if we get our price points too low? There's of course an interesting concept of who's paying. We have previously, pre-pandemic, we would have had fresh flowers on reception. Our receptionist finds it much easier to spend company money on fresh flowers than I imagine she would spend on fresh flowers at home. When I'm buying fuel, if I'm buying it for my car, it's on the company credit card. I don't usually check the price. I buy it wherever I need it. I don't go, oh, that's expensive. It's a motorway service station. I'll drive to the next supermarket. But when it's my wife's car, she may well make a different decision because it's our credit card that we're using to put fuel in that car. So a real difference in your pricing point as to whether you're talking to the end consumer, the person whose own money it is that they're spending, versus a buyer in a department or somebody in the organization who's been asked to get prices or something. So really important you know who's paying versus who's asking the price question. And then there's a difference of type of spend, for example. So food and fuel are commodities. We have to buy those. We may well shop around and there are choices of expensive or cheap versions of those, but watches and roses are discretionary. So our pricing decisions are quite different when it's, should I buy an expensive watch? Maybe, maybe not. And I took probably 3 years to make the decision to buy my watch because it was a big spend of money and I wasn't sure. Whereas I would just go and fill up my basket of food in a supermarket and I don't really check the prices of anything. I need that, I need that, I need that. It goes in the basket. So the type of spend will affect our price points and our awareness of the pricing issue. I guess all I'm trying to flag up with this is there are a wide range of factors that we as consumers consider, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, in making that decision to spend money. And that varies from consumer to consumer. It varies at different cycles of the month, whether I've just been paid or just about to be paid. Lots of variables that affect the price point decision that we're trying to simplify to a one number for everybody. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you've taken time out of your day to listen today. I hope you found it useful. There are my contact details on screen. if you buy my book, pick up the phone. I always have time to talk to people about pricing. So thank you for your time today.